Love it, love it, love it. Thankfully, we're seeing the drop shot more and more again. And in this video, I'll touch really briefly on when you should be hitting it and how you should be hitting it. But mostly, because that was a request of one of my clients, what to do after you hit that drop shot. Because I saw my clients play a drop shot in the right situation, but then they ended up losing the point because they didn't continue playing the point in the appropriate way. Obviously, you want to use the drop shot when you know that your opponent is slow or simply that they don't like moving forward. About 80% of tennis movement is side to side, laterally. So moving forward is something that a whole lot of people don't like when it's not on their terms. Obviously, when somebody is all the way back here behind the baseline, you manage to push them far back behind the baseline, that is when you can drop shot. Or obviously, if you manage to pull somebody out wide, you can then drop shot into the open space. Now, obviously, this is a hard court, but you can use the drop shot really well on courts where the footing is not necessarily the best. So for instance, on really dry clay courts, when you literally see people spinning their wheels when they have to change direction or take off, that's a great time. Or if you've ever played on slightly damp grass courts, the drop shot is an absolute weapon. I love to use the drop shot against two-handers because they tended to have a harder time running up to the ball than changing to a one-hander into their continental grip. So that's basically a way to throw them off rhythm. Now, of course, you can absolutely hit drop shots down the line, but when you're a little newer to starting to work with drop shots, I would go cross court, lower part of the net, and if you kind of screw it up and it sits high, hopefully at least there's a little bit of an angle on the ball that pushes your opponent off the court. Hitting a drop shot with an angle from the middle is incredibly hard. So maybe try those drop shots when you're actually being pulled out a little bit and you hit a ball from the outer thirds. So this is the middle corridor here. This is the outer third on the deuce court. This would probably be a great opportunity. Use your forehand drop shot. Or you're on the outer third here on the outside. That is when you got a backhand drop shot, obviously, if you're a right-hander. Also notice when I showed you from where to hit those balls, I deliberately stood in the court. Should you be trying to hit drop shots from back here? No, unless your opponent is somewhere stuck in their back fence. The ball is simply in the air too long and it's too easy to read that and they have too much time to run up to it. Now, in terms of how to hit the ball, you want to cradle the ball a little bit more, as opposed to a regular slice where you really want to extend through the ball. On the drop shot, you do want to give it a little bit more underspin, but you're still not hacking down on it. And you can start with simple self feeds to start experimenting. How much underspin do you need? How open does your racket face have to be? If you want some drills for more progressions on the drop shot and the execution in more detail, I'm going to link a video down below in the description. I briefly covered the when, why, and how. Now let's get into the juicy part. How do I continue to play after I hit that drop shot? The number one tip is continue to play. Don't just stand there and admire your shot and wait to see what happens. Don't assume that your drop shot is an outright winner. Assume that your opponent will get to the ball, albeit hopefully in a very unbalanced way, which most of the time will result in a shorter ball, which means that you should be moving up, following the ball a little bit at least, so that you're then ready to break into a full sprint should they drop shot it back in a very perfect way, which is probably very rarely going to happen. So unless you completely screw up that drop shot and it sits high and your opponent can almost just hit a regular chest high ball, you do want to assume that they're going to struggle, they're going to be stretched, and they have to lift the ball over the net, and that makes it slower and again a whole lot of times likely to be very short. My dad always used to say that I should imagine that the ball that I hit is attached to me with a string. So for instance, if I'm hitting the ball cross court and I see that my opponent really has to struggle getting up to that, I'm moving forward following the ball in. And of course, it depends on where I was. If I hit it from back here, I'm probably going to sneak up into here. If I see that my opponent is really, really in trouble, I continue to keep moving until they're about to make contact. That's when I have to split step. And what is that position called that I just got into? You got it in one, the bisector of an angle. So imagine you see me from the perspective of my opponent. If I'm drop shotting you, you have two most extreme shots available. You can go down the line here, or you can react with also a shorter cross court. I want to cut this entire area into half and put myself in a position where I'm roughly the same distance to both the extreme shots. That's my bisector of an angle, and it really depends on how deep I'm going to be on that, on when you're about to make contact as my opponent, because at that moment I want to be on top of my split step so that I could bound either way. Now, of course, if you do see that you completely screwed it up, let's say you're hitting it cross court and it sits up nicely for your opponent to attack, of course you're then not going to move in. But what you're going to do is you're still trying to be on your bisector of an angle. So this time, after hitting that drop shot, you're recovering back behind the baseline. So ideally, you can cover all the eventualities. Unless they hit a completely insane world-class shot, you're now in a great position to win the point because you physically continued the point and mentally you also continue at it. And if somehow they actually do win that point, you just applaud them and then you drop shot them again to see if that wasn't just a fluke. In either case, you mixed up your rhythm, you made them run, and over time that will tire them out. And now let's look at Hubert Hurkacz and Andrei Rublev, where mostly Hubert Hurkacz actually executes all those fundamentals that anybody can do, world class or not, on how to continue play after a drop shot. So starting to point out with the second serve here, both of them are pushing each other big time. And this is a great shot, and you see at this point, I want to venture forth to say that Hubert Hurkacz is deciding that he's going to drop shot. Now look at how much pressure he's putting Rublev on. Rublev literally has his back to the court, so it's going to take him some time to get his balance back. He's behind the court here, and the passive shot that he was able to get off here just lands really short. If we're going back to the thirds of the court, the ball is short on the outer third of the court, and the opponent is behind the baseline here. Now, the other thing that Hubert Hurkacz does is he disguises the drop shot really well. So up to here, it looks like he might go down the line, blast the ball, or go back behind Rublev. He can do anything, but he's choosing to drop shot, and he does go cross court. Rublev is still kind of trying to recover towards the center. So after the drop shot, big time, Rublev has to sprint. And you see that Hurkacz here is following up the ball. So let's go slow here. Rublev cannot use two hands. He has to go to one hand. It's below the net here as he's about to make contact here. Let's freeze it right here. So he's about to make contact, and Hurkacz is on his split step, on top of the split step, because the two most extreme balls that Rublev has are these here. And the bisector of an angle is right where Hubert Hurkacz is. So he would be in the perfect position to get either one of these two shots here, and because also he has an incredible wingspan, he would get him as volleys. He doesn't have to do anything anymore because Rublev actually misses the ball, but still, he would have been ready. He would have had any eventualities. Now let me know down in the comments if you're a fan of the drop shot and what is your favorite time to actually use it.